Counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal achievement, and extra sketchiness in a way that may make you think twice before you implement that brand spanking new idea you just found on the interweb. Hi, I am Brad James.
There we go. And I'm Michael Rampolla.
And today is very sketchy. It is episode 87, and we're calling it The Risk of Assumption, or we all know what happens when you assume. Last week, we had a special guest, Evan, who joined us and talked about his approach with planning details, et cetera, and we're going to take that a little further. But before we do that, a word from our sponsors. Over to you, Mr. Rampolla.
So it is. The Idea Collective Small Business Incubator is excited to sponsor the Spirity Agile Planning Experience happening tomorrow, Thursday, March 31st at 9:30 a.m. Central. You can join us as well for this amazing opportunity to grow and scale your business with some training, some planning, some networking with other business owners, and the opportunity to make a solid plan for the coming quarter. Join us as we explore and introduce some new ideas that we've been exploring around employee and client retention, and help you apply those ideas for your business and its goals in the next quarter. Again, join us on Thursday, March 31st, 9:30 a.m. Go to spirity.com/apex and you can register there. It's totally free and we'd love to have you. Brad, back over to you.
Hey, and it's the end of quarter one, which means that if you're going to the Apex planning event, you're probably going to come out of there with some marketing or sales goals. So if you need help with any of those marketing challenges that you are putting together, you're like, hey, great, I put together this great plan at this awesome Apex event. How do I get it done? Do me a favor, reach out to my friends over at Cream City Marketing. They're great, really good at taking strategies and plans and turning them into execution with a very coordinated effort with you and your team. So if you need help with your marketing strategies or plans that you're putting together, reach out to Aaron over at Cream City Marketing at aaron@creamcitymarketing.com. All right, diving in. Hey, this is the last episode of quarter one of 2022. We're still kicking. Kind of a big deal, right? We're nearing a countdown to 100 episodes. So,
who has allowed us to be on the air that long? Oh,
your wife. Your wife has allowed us to embarrass ourselves over and over again.
That's accurate. This is the benefit of what is it, public access broadcasting, right? Anybody can put anything out there, including us.
Especially in the age of the internet.
That's what I'm saying. Yep.
All right. So last week, Evan dove into a lot of things around how he applies his framework to make sure that the plans that you're putting together actually can be executed in a way with some excellence and actually help you get to the goals that you want, because he's very good at digging holes and identifying the hiccups. And so you and I last week discussed that, hey, most people make general assumptions about things, and that's what ends up happening to their plans or their planning.
Yep.
I do it. You do it. Everybody does it.
All the time. Multiple times a day. If all goes well.
Yeah, right? And I think that this is a great episode because we've been talking about what's going on in the world. We've been talking about how this chaos management and chaos just in general is going to continue to happen in some way, shape, or form and have an impact on you. And so making assumptions from here on out is going to hurt you, your business, your personal development, your whatever you're working on.
Basically.
And,
it's like
poor Umi.
Poor Umi. They say that the best laid plans of mice and men are often thwarted by assumption. I think I screwed that one up, but that's the gist of it, right? If you are making an assumption, if you are taking things for granted, if you are believing that things will just be in a certain way, especially the way that you want them to be, you're basically asking for trouble. And trouble's going to find you either way. There's no reason to invite it in.
And unless you really like being an ass, then, you might want to shift some things around.
Right. Like I assumed.
You're at like this angle.
Well, I assumed that I could,
I need to lean.
It's extra sketchy.
Like I should make you feel sideways.
It's funny because I'm trying to say
like my camera.
Like this feels more straight. This feels angle. I don't know. So no, so I assumed. So I'm working out of a different space today. Obviously, I assumed it would be really easy for me to just set everything up because I know how to do tech. Right? I know how to put a whiteboard on a wall. Sure, I do.
Question mark.
Question mark. Assumption. Insert assumption here. And I can't seem to get it. I really just can't seem to get it straight. I can't, Brad. I'm angled today. I'm askew. When is a level not a level? When it's askew.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Sure. Anyway, so
there you go.
Yeah. So when we're making assumptions, I don't know, Brett. We both had. I mean, this is a very simple, silly example that I can't seem to get a camera straight. But what have you run into assumptions really like causing major headache, major issue, plans to ultimately fail? I mean, I know there's a lot of risk involved, and I don't want to doom and gloom it, but I also don't want to undersell just how risky it is to make an assumption.
Right. I mean, here's a prime. I'll give a personal example, right?
But we love those.
So, often, like in the event space, right, with Catalyst events, we ran events, many events, and you make assumptions that based on continuous work with vendors and clients over the course of years, that you will end up having access to that same vendor when things come around, because you assume, and all of a sudden something happens, and now that vendor decides to back out literally 2 weeks prior to an event after committing verbally via email, everything, right? So these are the things that when you make assumptions can happen, and then you have to scramble to fulfill the agreement that you have put together.
So it's interesting because I'm going to do a callback to intuition. Remember, intuition is pattern matching, finding patterns in the current situation that are reflective of past situations. The context matches and the pattern matches, I can probably go with what worked the last time. That is literally making assumptions. That's your brain making assumptions and putting poor Umi in a bad spot. Because I can tell you, I mean, I've got the same things. I took on one of my very first contract gigs as a solo consultant. And I was coming from a big corporate, going to a big corporate, multinational, multi-brand, which is where I'd come from. Like, cool, I'm sure that this big company that's been around for a long time and has all this global complexity and sophistication, I'm sure they have a lot of the same things that my last company had.
Sure.
So I scoped this project based on what I was coming from. And I'm like, oh, cool, it'd be better that I will just knock it out. And then they accepted my proposal with not enough questions on my part. And this is a training program. So I said, can I have the coaching model, please? I want to put the coaching model in this slot, of our curriculum. And they said, which one do you want? I said, the coaching model. No. Which coaching model do you want? Well, do you want the one that's used in North America? Do you want the one that's used in East Asia? Do you want the one that's in automotive? That the automotive came up with on their own? Do you want the one that corporate has talked about but has never actually formally released? I want please. And now and just in that one example, I discovered, this is why this program is having a hard time getting legs. It's not operating from standards across even this one company. And everybody's like, yeah, that's nice, but that's not how we do it over here. And so
Of
once
course
we
not.
discovered this, of course not. So assumptions were being made on all sides anyway. And the project took a whole lot longer and was a whole lot bigger than I scoped it for. Worked out okay in the end because the result was fantastic, but it definitely was like, what, it was like a 4-month project turned into 18. Nicole's eyes just got as big as plates, by the way. She's like, wait, what? Yeah, 3 to 4 month project, cool, maybe 20 hours a week, turned into a full-time project for 18 months. The result was fantastic. I'm still very proud of it. And it was all based on, I completely underscoped and made a ton of assumptions as to what I was walking into based on my past, intuition versus assumption. I didn't ask enough good questions, or, well, just enough even questions, let alone good ones. So I know I'm a big fan. You're a fan of questions. I think generally questions are one way, but if we don't even realize we're making assumptions, we're not going to think to ask the questions. So there's kind of this.
So what's the difference between assumptions and intuition then? If we're going to categorize those two separately.
I like it. I think the difference is that intuition, the way we've talked about it, at least, intuition implies I'm going to check my, I don't know what I want to say. Check my context. Check my pattern. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Check the pattern. Because I'm saying this pattern, there's a pattern, there's a context. And if I check them and validate, maybe that validate, I think that's the word I'm looking for. Validate the two parts, the pattern and the context. Assumption does neither. Assumption just goes on ahead and says, this feels similar, or probably doesn't even stop to check. I think that's the biggest.
So as you say that, I pulled up assumption, a thing that is accepted as true or is certain to happen without proof.
There it is. I went big, without proof. And there's our keyword. Today's secret word is proof. So without proof, assumptions are just basically saying, I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but you should.
Right.
And if you don't, then you're asking for trouble. I think all this comes down to, go back to our circles of control and influence. Remember, right? If this is all I get, then it's worth my time to check my assumptions. It's worth my time to validate context and patterns. It's worth the effort to minimize the risk that comes with the things I can only influence and the things I have no influence on whatsoever. There's a whole lot of world out there that you can't do anything about. So the little part you can do something about, make sure you got it right.
Yeah, So I mean, but what? There's an innate thing that causes us to make assumptions. So I want. Right. It's based on belief systems. It's based on your personal history. It's based on what you've been told. The thing is none of those things that I just said are necessarily factual about forward thinking. Right. So when we assume, we're predicting something is going to happen in the future.
Correct.
And it's wrong?
100% correct. And as we've talked about globally, the patterns and the context is changing. And old beliefs and history and conventions, and they say that stuff is increasingly flying out the window at an ever increasing speed.
The twatty.
That's what, here we are again, and we're back. Hashtag that one now. Nicole will explain it.
I don't know if Nicole knows what that one is. Do you know what that one is, Nicole?
One of our red flags. The twatty. That's the way we've always done it. It's full of assumption. It has nothing to do with any changing context or patterns. It's all about no proof. That's the way we've always done it. And whenever I've asked somebody for why do we do it, it's the why do we do it this way? And that's the answer. What that's basically saying is we don't know anymore. We don't know anymore why we do it. There's a now debunked example from psychology. Brad, do you know the one about the monkeys in the ladder in the water in the rain shower?
No.
Ready? Let's begin. So there's a ladder in a testing room. Bananas, I guess we'll make the bananas red, at the top of the ladder. Sorry, and monkeys. Oh, I have to draw monkeys. We'll just do the face of a monkey because I don't think I can pull that off. There, monkeys at the bottom. Monkey climbs ladder. Faucet with rain gets turned on and soaks monkey. Monkey comes back down. Actually, more importantly, what happens is, if I remember correctly, all the other monkeys get rained on. So I think everybody gets sprayed with water. I think, if I remember correctly. I'm not doing this perfectly, but you get the idea. So monkeys learn not to do what?
Climb the ladder.
Right. New monkey comes in, doesn't know. New monkey climbs ladder. What do the other monkeys do?
Get angry.
They pull the monkey down from the ladder and they beat him, according to this myth. It's proven not true, but it's such a strong anecdote, it'll still make the point. New monkeys get introduced, so on, like this pattern repeats. And the way that the story goes, it gets to the point that even when we no longer have the monkeys that were in there when the first time it happened, new monkeys will continue to prevent other monkeys from going to get the bananas. Even when we take the water away, even if we remove all the original conditions, new monkeys will still get beaten for attempting to go after the bananas. Now, it's a perfect example of it's flawed because we don't know why we do it anymore. But that's what we do.
But that's a biological thing, right? That happens in biology. It happens in bees. It happens in ants.
There are real life examples of this. This one was proven to be not real, but it's the one I remember. Brad, you can give us some real life examples that don't involve monkeys, ladders, and beating, I hope.
Well, I mean, it's the whole premise around hive mind, right? So
there you go.
It's why they began to breed out certain traits in bees, but it also has affected other things that they can't correlate because of it.
Like what?
So like honeybees, from a pollination standpoint, they've bred out aggressiveness, but that also has had other impacts on their ability to survive in extreme climates and conditions, and they haven't been able to build the correlative correct together. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think that this is something though that we just in biological, right? When you talk about communal animals, right? If you're talking about science, when you talk about communal animals, social animals, insects, mammals, whatever they are, this is something that consistently happens and has happened for years. This is part of the reason why evolution happens. But we now get stuck into a place, and it's behavioral evolution. It's not necessarily physical or genetic, but it's also the premise of communal learning. The challenge is that when you get such ingrained communal learning, you do get stuck in the idea of that's the way we've always done it. But I think it's an important point to understand, because I think for if you're watching this, we've been talking just about assumptions. What's the big takeaway? You have to be aware of this stuff. When you're making innate choices based on assumption, it's a skill to be aware of the assumptions that you're making.
Correct.
And that's why Michael and I wanted to bring this up, because everybody is making assumptions on their story of growing up, right? We've gone through a period of prosperity, and now we're hitting constant chaos. And the reason people are constantly dealing with the struggle of it is because they've been raised in this evolution of, well, you just shouldn't do it, right? You shouldn't climb the ladder. But now people are climbing the ladder and causing chaos. And people are like, well, I don't know what to do or why that's happening.
We don't climb the ladder.
In fact, if we look, when in fact, the idea is now in this place of more perspective, more different history, more interconnectedness. We now have this barrage of influence from historical convention
Yes.
that is causing this awareness and chaos a little bit, because now people are challenging the norms because they're seeing norms being challenged.
And
so
I think
when you make assumptions
yeah.
about that causes challenges internally, and you have to be aware of it.
So does challenge the norm equate with question authority? I mean, when I was in high school, question authority was a thing, right? Like I remember the T-shirt that I owned, right? Black T-shirt, question authority in white. I think the A was an anarchy A because I was, BA.
You were that kid. You were that kid, huh?
But here's the thing. I was the kid that, like, before I knew what Tachwati was, like, I was all over that. And then we do it this way. Why do we do it that way? Well, that's the way we do it. Do we have to do it that way? Well, that's the way we do it. Why? I don't understand. What about if we did it this? Like, I was that kid, which is why when I started teaching, I got all those kids because it was like karma. But what the question is, I mean, I think it was tongue in cheek for me. It was early signs of my, ability to ask everybody questions until they want to throw me out of the room. Is challenging the norm the same as questioning authority? Is there a nuance there? Nicole's loving this, but I'm just loving. Nicole, we got to get you on more often, because the reaction shots that we get that the audience doesn't get, like, make the interaction. So if you want to see Nicole's face more often as much as we do, and you do, let us know. Let us know that you agree that our producer deserves some screen time, because she is fantastic for being the face of the audience, if you will, like the voice of the consumer. She's the face of the audience. I'll work on fly-ins. There we go. All right.
Deal.
All right. Deal. Negotiated. Accepted. Okay, so it's challenging the norm the same as questioning authority. Back to the question I posed or tried to pose.
I think it's different, but I think I definitely think there's a time where challenging the norm is equal. A square is a rectangle is not a square.
Correct. Right.
That's what I'm saying. I think that sometimes challenging the norm is questioning authority, but that doesn't mean that challenging the norm is always questioning authority.
I like it. I like that. Well done. Nice use of geometry, by the way. I want to take communal learning back to one other idea of a not equals. So this is, sometimes equals. I want to just quick adjust common sense, because common sense is a myth. For the record, common sense is a myth. There's no such thing. It's up there with the Easter Bunny. Common sense says, I believe that you should know, and I believe that you've had all the exact same experiences I've had and have drawn all the exact same conclusions that I have. It's common sense. Common sense doesn't exist. It's just my version of how things should be. Common sense is a myth. It's different than communal learning, where collectively we are learning and applying and sharing what we have learned for the benefit and application of everyone. Right? Common sense is, I believe you are seeing things exactly the way I am. You have formed the exact same cognitive biases and preconceptions. You have the same judgments and prejudices that I do. Of course you do, because everybody should be like me.
You heard it here first.
It's supposed to sound that bad. Common sense is a myth. It is, among other things. Okay.
This is the glass shattering episode for those of you who bang your head against a brick wall like I do every single day, because you go, look, there are simple things. Guess what? Our common sense, fortunately, in a mythological land of Wisconsin, where evidently the rules of physics don't apply. I don't know.
So when we recognize, Brad, that we are facing an assumption, when we recognize that we're misapplying common sense, when we discover that the norm is worth challenging, now what? We've set people up to say, don't take better care of Umi. If we're going to take better care of Umi, how do we do that? We got to give people a little something here, because I feel like I feel like we pulled the rug out from under them and we haven't caught them yet. And I feel bad about
You have to ask questions. At the end of the day, it comes down to asking questions.
Yeah.
And if there's something that goes off in your head that I don't know for sure, right? It's that certainty impact chart. You guys remember that? That was what, 4 episodes ago? If your certainty is not 100%, ask a question, right? This is also why when you're building out documentation, a process, all of that stuff, you continue to iterate so you don't get stuck into Twatty world. So that you can build a culture of communal learning and hopefully a business culture of common sense and logic. Logic does exist. So that when you're bringing people on and scaling and handling these challenges, you begin to create that culture, right? One of the things, and Nicole can attest to this, is I have put Nicole in positions of growing and challenging her own abilities, and she's working through it. She understands why. It's not always easy. And she's very good, I think, at beginning to see the perspective of why it is very important to be able to have that similar mindset where it's not just giving people the answer, you're giving people frameworks to work off of and generate answers to hopefully get to the same point and create a space where they can make mistakes and grow.
Yep.
Nicole, am I on with how our conversations have been going probably the last 3-4 months? Yeah.
She's nodding emphatically for everybody else since I now have to do play-by-play for lack of fly-in. Yes, she totally agrees. And thanks, Brad, for pulling that out because I think some people don't. I think
not easy, by the way. Not easy. Nicole, how many assistants, how many admins did I tell you I've gone through?
Several.
Lost count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a process of learning, and so it's something that we try to build in, and I've been improving with Michael's help and other people's help. But you're not going to get this right away. This idea of assuming that people know, right, and then being open to having questions be asked,
right?
Because there's often times where we put things out there and assume that they understand the perspective, like you said, Michael, but people don't. And so having that dialogue, I think, is the second thing. So being aware and then being open to the dialogue, I think, is the second point that people need to be ready to have, even if it's just 5 minutes. And then third piece, we're building the framework here off the top of our heads, friends. Be aware, be open to a dialogue, and then iterate. Those are my 3 things.
Aware, dialogue, iterate. Insta framework. I like it because that's really solid. The awareness is that if without the awareness, I can't even engage in the dialogue. And the iterate assumes that the dialogue is ongoing and won't be correct the first time. And feel like this actually feeds back, becomes a feedback loop. Iterate. Now, what am I now aware of? Therefore, what's the next dialogue? What do I learn? How do I like that? I like that.
Cool.
We just gave Umi a framework.
We did a thing.
Look at us. Yay. Gold stars. Nicole, can you get those gold stars in the mail? Put them on the chart. On the fridge. Thanks.
Hey, on that note, we do have to leave you because we're at our time. Next week, we're going to give you something a little different because neither Michael nor I are available to be on here because I'll be traveling and Michael will be busy. So we're going to have something special for you. Stay tuned. It's still up in the air, but we think it's going to be good stuff. And closing. My brain is flying 50 different directions today, friends. So we just learned all about don't always assume. It will get poor Umi in trouble. And the thing that shattered my glass was that common sense does not exist except for in the mythological brain of Brad James. And we trust that you learned that too, even though it's a little tough to agree with. And remember, don't always be the person who just says that's the way we've always done it. Next week's episode, we'll have that special thing. In the meantime, send us your questions to info@sketchyideashow.com. Hey, we're going to be spinning a whole bunch of stuff out here in second quarter. Remember, we talked about guests. I've been reaching out to guests left and right. We've been following up with them. I've had some great dialogues. We've got some big people that I've been working on to try and make sure that we get them on here. So come back next week when we go over some more sketchy ideas, add some extra sketchiness because it may be something that is extra sketchy. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.